Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the Build Your Copywriting Business podcast. Hello, friends.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. As always, I am joined by my super spectacular co-host, Kate Sitaris. Hello, Kate.
Hello.
Hello. So we are very excited to be joined today by Crystal Clark, who is, yes, a CCA student, which is fantastic, of course, but equally, if not even more exciting for today's topic, she is a PhD candidate in applied behavioral analysis and doing her dissertation on self-management. And we're going to talk about how to get yourself to follow through on things that you have started, like, for example, joining a program like the CCA, course purchases, all that kind of stuff, changing a career. So, Crystal, welcome. We're so excited to talk with you.
Thank you. I'm so excited to talk with you as well.
So what got you interested in applied behavioral analysis to begin with? And actually, you know what? I take that back. What's a better way, now that I've said the words twice, how would you define applied behavioral analysis?
To shorten it up, we usually just call it ABA because it's just
ABA.
a mouthful.
Okay.
Yes. But I kind of fell into it by accident. I got my bachelor's degree in psychology, and I wasn't quite sure where I wanted to go with it because you can't do a whole lot with a bachelor's in psych. And I was looking at different programs, and a recruiter kind of talked me into it. I was like, this sounds like it could be really fun. But I was thinking more, like the Criminal Minds, FBI, behavior analysis. And then I got into it, and it was a lot more personal. And it was working with kids with autism and helping them learn social skills and really like helping them find their motivation to want to learn. So it just kind of fell into the self-management where I felt that connection with it.
Interesting. And does ABA often focus on following through with projects? Where does that kind of fall in the spectrum of human experience?
Yes, absolutely. So a lot of the work we do is with kids, but it's still trying to get them to follow through and helping them kind of feel that like excitement of accomplishing something so you guys can be excited together. But ABA, it works for everybody. It's for all ages. So when you kind of apply that to yourself, you're really kind of digging down to find your why and making sure that your motivation is high enough. Because if the work is too high and for the reward, you're not going to finish. And that can be something as simple as for a kiddo that's learning how to match and they don't want to come to the table and figure out how to match to get them school ready, then that motivation needs to be there for them too, just like it has to be for us. Mm-hmm. So it can be something that simple or go into like completing a course and changing careers or changing relationships.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Because we're always like, yeah, absolutely. It's really important to teach kids to do it. But, oh, gee, it'd be really important to teach myself to do it too.
Yes, there's been a lot of times where I've been like working with a kid and I'll catch myself and be like, oh, I need to learn from my own experiences that I'm trying to give to them and, follow my own word.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, exactly. And actually, maybe this is a good way to kind of get into it because there's so much I want to dig into. But how does your experience in the CCA, how does that come into play with this topic as a whole?
So I bought the CCA course, I think 2 years ago now. I was just at a point I was frustrated and trying to think of something different. And when I look back at what I've always wanted to do is I always wanted to write. So I thought it'd be a really good way to get into that. And I did all of the modules. I didn't finish the homework assignments because life started to get in the way. And the more work that I put into it, I was just so exhausted from school and work and everything else that I just kind of put it on the back burner. But I was seeing all these posts pop up in the Facebook group where I was like, oh, these people are doing these really cool things and they're actually making the steps go so that they can change their life. So I was like, what do I need to do to actually find that motivation? So even though I kind of put the CCA on pause for myself, I'm still watching in the background and then trying to get through my dissertation for myself so that I can help myself find self-motivation to really push through and make my own dreams come true.
Oh, I love that. That's fantastic. What a great way to make use of like, oh, I found this struggle. Hey, I'm going to solve it for myself and for everyone. So thank you, Crystal.
Oh, thank you.
What is it that keeps us from when we know that we want to do something? Like I want a new copywriting career, for example, and I purchased this course. It's here in front of me. I have everything I need. What is it? Where is that disconnect between what we think we want to do and what we actually do?
Sure. So a lot of what I'm writing my thesis on is really that self-determination theory. So it's that behavioral connection between I've got this idea and I really want to do it. And actually, what's it going to take to get through the steps to make this actually happen? So again, kind of like going back to just like finding that motivator and finding your why and making sure that that why is strong enough to push you through. So it's kind of cheesy, but something I think is really cool is to make like a vision board and stick it up and make sure that you can really see like what your goals are. So maybe it's even just like you're sitting on a beach with your computer and you're writing, and that's really like, that's the goal. And it seems so far-fetched, but you put it on your fridge and you see it every day with like a little mantra that you can go through. And then that's going to really help kind of push you through and get you in the right mindset. And you're going to see that before you drink your coffee, and then try and say it to yourself while you're drinking your coffee. Like, all right, I'm going to do this for 5 minutes or 10 minutes before I go to work. So really to, make those SMART goals so that it's really achievable for yourself.
And I know we talk about the big why, and we have some thoughts about how to dig into it. What is your perspective? How do you talk to people? If someone were to say, okay, that's great, I get it. How do I get at that why?
I think making a list is really important. And even kind of digging back to like, sometimes we get lost, I feel, when the older we get. So even kind of like hopping back into the sandbox and being like, what did I want to do? Like when I was a child, what made me happy and what motivated me to get through all those years of school to try and go to college and figure something out. And then it really, I feel like it just kind of pushes you a little bit more to make your childhood self happy too. And then you have that like extra pride. So then if you have kids of your own, you can be like, look what I did. I followed my dreams still.
Yeah. Yeah. What is it about people that this is such a common experience? Is it that we go into things with unrealistic expectations? Is it that why is it that this is such a common experience?
I think change is just really scary. And you go through life and you're like, it's okay and safe to be complacent, even if you're not happy, but it's what you know. So that's something that I've also felt in different jobs, and I've job hopped, but it's still like the same job and it's just safe. So when I first joined the CC, I was like, that's it. I told my husband, I was like, I'm going to do this and this is going to be our life now. And he's like, okay, whatever you need. And then every time he would check in, I was like, oh yeah, but I still like have all this work for my work that I have to do. And that was my safety net. So it's like finding that point of balance to get through everything, and keeping your safety net, but not being so afraid to like step off of it. Like you still have your support system, because the change can be very frightening. And I think it really stops everyone. And adults just learn different than younger learners. So trying to figure out how you're going to learn, I think is really important too, because some people learn better from books, but I learn a lot better from doing. So finding that time to actually do it, I think is very important.
So how do we find that time, right? Because it's I think that's something that people are like, well, how do I do it? How do I find the time? Is it a matter of finding the time, or is it a matter of making it a priority? Is it, how do we, once we have our why, which guides us, how do we start making it part of our daily lives? Because like you said, life got in the way and you didn't expect it to, but spoiler alert, everybody, life's always going to get in the way. There is no perfect time to start anything new, whether it's starting a copywriting career, whether it's having children, whether it's moving across the country, any of those things. There is no perfect time. Life is always going to get in the way. So what are the daily steps that keep us moving forward in spite of the fact that life keeps happening? If we're lucky, life keeps happening.
I think it's both. So I think like the time and so the motivation of finding your why. And I think those, like going back to the SMART goals. So I wrote it down so I didn't forget, but like specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound.
Mm-hmm.
So just being able to just pick that goal. So you can say like, I'm going to work on the modules for 30 minutes before I go to work. And then I'm going to work on it for 30 minutes when I come home, and just really setting it as a priority. Because if it is part of your why, then it's going to become a priority. And just trying to make sure that even if life does get in the way, you still have something, like I said, like the picture up on your fridge, or writing out your goals and having them somewhere visible for yourself so you can remember that that's still a priority. Because kids are going to get sick, jobs are going to change, like life's going to happen. But just having something to remind you, I think like having an alert on your phone, just so you remember, and being like that extra push in the morning when you're drinking your coffee, like, oh yes, I am going to do my work and I'm going to push through. And this is why I'm going to do that. And maybe even, again, make that picture like your screensaver. So you have to look at it all day long and remember, like, I'm getting through my job, and maybe it's just my survival job for right now, so that I can get to my real job that I'm working towards.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I'm curious if you have advice in terms of, I think it's inevitable that there's going to be a day that comes where you're like, okay, 30 minutes before work, 30 minutes after work, a day where you're just like, I can't, and I didn't do it. How do you prevent that from snowballing into, okay, now I didn't do it for another day, and I didn't do it for another day. And now to get back into it, it comes with, I feel like, feelings of guilt of, oh, I didn't do it for however many days in a row. And then kind of that defeated, well, all of these days, and now I feel behind, even though
Sure.
you're not really behind, but yeah.
I think even maybe just giving yourself scheduled time. It's so hard to just be nice to yourself sometimes. Because I'll do it with school, and like the point that I'm at right now, everything's on my time, and I'm a procrastinator and an introvert, and it's really hard for me to get stuff done sometimes. So I'll wait to the last minute and just write it out really fast. But I think sometimes just being able to know yourself is really important. So whatever's going to really motivate you to pull yourself back out of it, and having a support system, I think, is also really important. So said if my husband would come and nudge me every once in a while, and then it got to the point where he was like, okay, I'll stop bothering you about this. But having that extra person who's like, hey, how's this going? And just telling somebody else your goals so that they can really help try and guide you there, because it's one thing to do it by yourself and try and isolate. But if you have a whole support system, I feel like you're more likely to try and achieve those goals, because if it snowballs, other people are going to know too. And you don't want to, have that confrontation where they're like, oh, how's this going? You're like, oh yeah, that's another thing I just quit. Sorry. Which I used to do a lot with courses. So I feel like having that there is really nice. And I really like the CCA has a Facebook group that keeps popping up all the time. So if I am just doom scrolling, the CCA will pop up like, oh, hey, I forgot. Okay, maybe I'll start working on something again.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. The having external resources, if that's the kind of person that you are, that you like having those external things to lean on. How do you feel about rewards, or how do you feel about about punishments? You hear sometimes about people saying, if I don't do this, then I'm going to send $1,000 to, I don't know, someone that I don't like, or something along those lines. What have you seen in your studies in terms of what works best, rewards, punishments, all of that kind of stuff? Does any of it work?
In ABA, we really focus on rewards and the positive reinforcement.
Mm-hmm. I suppose less so with children, certainly. Yeah.
Yes. But one thing that can be really hard is just making sure whatever that reward is, that you don't have full access to it all the time. So if you're like, I'm going to get through this module and then I can have this chocolate bar, but you're an adult in your own house and you're like, I had a bad day, I'm going to go eat that chocolate bar anyway. So someone else needs to be in control of that chocolate bar. And then you can go show them the proof, like, look, I did this. And then they can reward you for it. Or if you're working towards like getting your career up, you can put money into a jar and be like, every module that I get done, I'm going to put, $50, $10, whatever, into a jar. And then I'm going to use that to help with whatever I need to really get boosted up for marketing or for getting my website up. And or helping me out around the house so that I can hire somebody to clean my house so that I can have more time to work on this. Or like PTO days. I think that would be really helpful just so that, it's something really beneficial. It's again, just finding that reward that's actually good enough to really push you through. Or
Yeah.
I complete this course, I'm going on vacation, but I have to get everything done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cause I think it's really easy to go, oh yes, I read about rewards and I will buy myself this book if I finish it. But yeah, I agree. There's sometimes you look at a reward and you go, well, this work is challenging and a book is not. I don't care if I get that book or not at this point. Or you just go, well, I want this book anyway, so I'm going to get this book. Is there any way outside of having someone gatekeep the reward for you that you know of? Because what if there isn't? What if you just don't have someone who can play that role for you? Is there anything that you know of to kind of gatekeep that reward in the way you mentioned?
Sure. And something else that's really helpful too is that they found that people who do track their progress are more likely to keep up with their progress. So having something reward would even fall into the category of like putting a sticker up for yourself. So you can be like, you know what, I made it through. If I get, 7 stickers for every 30 minutes that I have spent on this course, then I am going to buy myself dinner. And then you just go put the sticker up. And then it's kind of like the honesty program, but it's that reward of self-fulfillment where you're like, I did this, and you can see it.
Yeah.
And you can start to see, like those little boxes getting checked off.
That makes sense. Kate and I were actually just talking about how a streak can be very compelling, that there are apps that we use that it tells you how many days in a row that you've done it. And you don't want to break that streak. Once you get to a certain point, you definitely don't want to go down to 0. And I would think that, marking it, whether it's with stickers or whether it's, this is the 3rd day in a row, 33rd day in a row, 333rd day in a row, marking it in some way can be a great way to just keep yourself coming back the next day, because you don't want that pain of going all the way back to 0.
Right.
Well, I love the idea of actually seeing it too, to be like, I think it's very easy for us to be like, oh, what have I accomplished? I've done nothing. Because I think we accomplish things and then we move quickly on from the fact that we accomplished them. But to actually see like, oh, I've got, rows and rows of whether it is stickers or whatever, to be like, oh yeah, I've invested time and look at all I've done. That's, I love that.
Right. Yeah. It's like actually seeing how much time you have put in. Like you said, you don't want to just scrap it all because you put so much time in there.
Yeah.
So it's really, that push to get through and be like, okay, I can do it. Like I've been doing it. So it's going to happen.
Exactly. It's a way of getting that sunk cost to actually work for you.
Yes.
And then I've already put in this so much before. I'm not going to stop now. Yeah, actually, Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's a program for writers, artists, and kind of to get you being more creative. And part of it is spending time each morning handwriting 3 pages. And it's just stream of consciousness, just whatever comes up, but just kind of to get. And I have started it again and again and again. And this time I thought, all right, I'm going to start. I want to stick with this. I want to get more creative. And what I've started doing is numbering each day I do it. It's all right. I think this was like number 52 this morning. And because I number it, I know how many days I've done it. And now it's the same thing. I don't want to break the streak. So I don't even need to see like all of the stickers next to each other, but because I know the number, I don't want to stop. And so now I'm like, all right, how many notebooks am I going to get through by the end of the year? How many notebooks am I going to get through in 2 years or 3 years? And that momentum is actually a little bit exciting. So even on the days when I'm like, God, 3 pages is so long, it's a pleasure to see that number climb. And you have been in the CCA. Is there anything like that you could recommend to CCA students or for people who are pursuing any other kind of course or program?
Yeah, I think being able to really write down how you're feeling about something is also really helpful. And like you've got like the course book that we can have in the printed version. I think having that, actually having something physical to make it feel more real, and writing down in that, like write your notes down as you're going and mark down how many pages you've gotten through, because then you have the book and you know how far you need to get to get through all of the program. And even just making those steps. So like if you're building your website, write down every single step that you need to get through, and then write your process down so that you have more of an idea. I think that really kind of helps guide you and make it a little bit more real, because that I've done online schooling for a long time, and sometimes you feel like you're just on an island.
Mm-hmm.
So instead having the course group and having something real to hold, I think really kind of helps push through. And then, like you said, with the journaling and getting through, I know you guys have like the milestones that you get through. So you have that
Mm-hmm.
to really look at too and be like, once I get through this, I can get to this point. And I think that's really encouraging too, because when I started the course, I was like, all right, I need to get through these so I can check off my first box and kind of work through.
Yeah. And I know that the human brain loves to close loops, right? I know that that's pretty much universally the human brain loves to close. Is it, as someone who likes to check things off a list, is that another one of those things that's more universal, or do some people prefer that and other people find different types of motivation as they work through their to-do list?
I think it depends on the learner. Some people can find
Makes
it kind of
sense.
punishing if you don't get to check it off and then you're just staring at this list of unaccomplished things. But for me personally, I am a list maker. So I like to draw out the whole list and have it somewhere so I can see it, whether it's on my phone or on the fridge. So then I can have that reinforcement of checking it off.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, okay, yes, just another step closer.
That makes sense. And I think it sounds like, I think we tend to think like, I want to get everything, I want to do everything the right way, right away. But it sounds like maybe one of the best ways to approach getting through something like this is to experiment a little bit, to learn how you do things best, to experiment with what your motivation is, to experiment with what maybe there is a punishment element, or to experiment with what gets you, if it's not excitement to do it, what gets you to follow through on the commitment to do it, that there maybe has to be more experimentation than we're used to. Would you say that that's accurate?
Absolutely. And I think it's nice to kind of take a step back, because I did the same thing when I got the course. I just dove in and I think I did stuff too fast.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like, I'm just going to take all this knowledge in, and then you almost like stall out, which it depends on how you learn again. But yeah, to kind of stepping back and seeing what works for you, because in ABA, every client that we work with, we alter the programming so that it's individualized for them. Because again, some people learn by doing, some people learn by being told multiple times how to do something, or working through it over and over, seeing it and video modeling. So yeah, being able to really know yourself and, like you said, experimenting, like, well, this didn't work, so I'm going to try this now. And just kind of testing it out for yourself, I think is really important.
That makes a lot of sense. And it's interesting too, because I think that when we're little kids, we just kind of, I don't know, listen to our parents, listen to our teachers.
Exactly.
But most of us don't take the time to kind of experiment with how we learn, how we experience things, any of that. So what a great opportunity to get to know ourselves better. Look at that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And a lot of the kids will go in and just kind of see what they do and what they gravitate towards before we really try and push any sort of learning system on them. So we kind of stepping back and doing the same thing for yourself.
Exactly. I was going to say, is there kind of a specific way to do that? Or would you just say it's kind of more, how would you do that as an adult? How would you? Yeah.
It's a lot of trial and error, still just like a kid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And kind of giving yourself grace when something doesn't work out, I would guess. Yeah. Crystal, this has been so awesome. I know that people are going to be listening to this one again and again, because there's
very relatable.
A lot to learn. Yes.
So Thank you too for being very honest about your experience. And I think,
we have all been there. We've all, well, at least I think most people have, the vast majority of people have signed up for something or got started with something and just didn't follow through. But I love that you've given us tactics to follow through, to go, okay, I know myself now. I know what the possibilities are for me not to follow through. And now I have some tools I can use to get to that end that I want to get to. Yeah. Amazing. Well, Crystal, thank you so much for being here. I was going to say, is there any way for people, we probably don't want anyone to get into, you probably don't want anyone to get in touch with you. Like, leave me alone, people. I don't want you.
I can't yet just because I have to do like the recruitment through
That's right. There's no place to, we can't show your work or anything like that.
We will update this once that time comes.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll catch up with Crystal once she's officially PhD certified. That's not the
PhD, Kate. That's PhD, obviously it's PhD.
Should be hopefully by this time next year. So
exciting. So exciting.
Keep us posted.
Yes, please do keep
posting the group. Let everyone know.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yes. We'll celebrate alongside you. Actually, that's a good question. What are you going to do to celebrate?
Oh, yes.
Ooh, I don't know. It's going to be
a year to think about it.
I haven't been in school for most of my life. So.
Yeah, well, time to figure out your reward, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Physician, heal thyself. Yes. Soon to be physician. All right. Well, Crystal, thank you so much for being here. And with that, we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Bye, everybody. Like what you heard? Hit subscribe so you never miss a video. And if you're ready to take the first step toward becoming a copywriter yourself, sign up for a free video training right here.